again, welcome back. So today I'm going to be sharing with you the proper way to power your mining rigs, whether it be ASICs or a GPU. So many of you, if you don't already know, your mining rig is going to be pulling a lot of power. And so most ASICs we're automatically going to be pulling are going to need a 220 volts outlet anyways. And if you're not using 220 for your GPUs, I suggest going up to 220 anyways. It's going to be more efficient because it's going to pull the same amount of wattage, but with a higher voltage, you're only going to need less amperage to maintain the same wattage. So before we get into all that, I'm going to show you what my current setup looks like, and here it is. So I am not an expert by any means. I'm not an electrician. I'm just very much a hobbyist. Try to learn as much stuff as I can, and hopefully give that some of that knowledge to you. And probably get yelled at by somebody in the comments. So the proper way to do it, I'm okay with that. So we're planning on doing some upgrades to the house, anyways. Some additional outlets for a camper, an AC unit, etc. However, I'm running out of space on this side anyways. I only have 3 open slots and one that's not being used. So I actually had an electrician install this second panel. And it is pretty much a clean slate. Now this is not going to be a setup for everybody. If you've got the option to do it this way, then I should just go on that way as well. So where I'm at, when I talked to the electrician and when they did this, I did not require any permits to install this or do any of the upgrades that I plan on doing. So I highly, highly recommend you do your research for your local area and all the stuff that you need before starting. So make sure you contact your local city, county, state, or whatever electrician you need to talk to before proceeding with this next step. If nothing else, this video is just more of information of the stuff that you need before you actually start powering your mining rig. So one of the first things I'm going to do, so I've even, like many of you, have done the electrical cords throughout the house. Now granted, I've used some pretty heavy duty electrical cords. These are 20 amp electrical cords. I believe they're 14 or 12 gauge wire. I actually have ones that are bigger inside the house right now. They are 10 by 3 and they are 3 outlets, 20 amp outlets. So on a true 20 amp cord, you're going to have this funny style connector right here. So you're going to have a blade up and down and then a blade side to side in your ground. So even stepping up to the next step, you're going to have to be doing some kind of electrical work anyways to upgrade your electrical system, because you're going to be upgrading your outlets if your house doesn't already have it. Now I have learned the hard way. So in the bedroom that I have my mining rig set up, the outlets in it are only 15 amps. So still trying to make it work on those circuits, trying to go to multiple 15 amps. I still managed to melt outlets and light switches because the power goes into a light switch first and then down to each one of the outlets. Thankfully, I did not catch anything on fire, knock on wood. But you know, in the industry of learning, you know, hands-on, if you don't screw something up, you ain't learning. So this is my knowledge I'm trying to pass on to you as a novice myself going through this. So what I ended up doing is I used extension cords, run them throughout the house, so heavy duty extension cords, going to 20 amp circuits. I had to change each one of the outlets to make sure there were 20 amp outlets. And it's working right now. I've had it running for quite a few months now. I haven't had an issue. It's still quite annoying having these big electrical cables running throughout your house. The setup I'm going to do, you could actually still do to a room as long as codes permit. So you could technically run a 220 volt outlet into a bedroom or room that you have your mining rig set up in, as long as is permitted. Some houses, they will have outlets like that for big window units, big 220-volt window units. So this setup you could essentially do in a bedroom like that. Here I have it in the garage. This is where I actually plan on moving my mining rig, so it'll be easier on the AC unit itself. Plus, so we don't have to hear the noise all the time. So I'm going to be installing an exhaust system for the garage, some vents in the garage door itself, and some additional safety features. So I definitely highly recommend any kind of safety features, whether it's additional smoke detectors, fire extinguishers, or if you could spend the money on like the halogen, I believe it's what's called, halotron fire extinguishers, basically the halon replacement. They actually sell ones from Buckeye, which I plan on getting. You actually mount up on the roof, and it's basically a halon system, and it'll basically saturate the entire garage if something would indeed happen. I'm also going to be getting an outlet that actually has basically a smoke detector attached to it, so when it senses smoke, it will automatically cut the circuit. So, because I can't even go a single day on Facebook or forums without seeing somebody's mining rig catching on fire. So, make sure that you are being safe and responsible with your mining rig. I understand you are trying to make money. We're all in the same boat here, but please keep it safe, especially if you're going to be mining in your house with your family. So, with that said, we're going to move on to the next step. So I'm going to show you kind of what I'm going to be doing. So I'm just going to mount it right here because that's pretty much where I'm going to be having the mining rig. So let's go through some of the stuff that you're going to need. So you're going to need a 2-pole 30 amp breaker. Basically all this 2-pole means is that on a circuit breaker, a breaker panel like this, your phases are broken in. You have what's called split phase. One phase is going to be 120 volts. When you connect two of them together, you get 220, 240 volts. That's the reason why you have a 2-pole circuit breaker. Like I said, not an electrician. I spoke to electricians. Pretty sure I'm going to be yelled at or cursed at in the comments down below. I'm okay with that. Just make sure you put in the information so everybody can learn from it, including me. I'm going to be going to a heavy-duty outlet. Typically, this kind of outlet is a push-in, turn lock, very similar to what you probably see in like a generator or something like that. You probably could see this on a 120 or even a 220 volt system based on how it's used. The proper nomenclature for this outlet, which I will be putting everything down in the description down below. This is a L6-30P. The L6 is basically the style of the connector. 30 means 30 amps, and the P means that it's, 30R. 30R. The R means receptacle. So L6-30R, because it's receptacle. That's the P. Yeah, you can't forget the P. Because the P goes in there. The P goes in there. Like that, and then there I go. So there's your P, there's your R. Get an outlet box. Just basically put it down here somewhere up against the stud. I've already got 10 gauge Romex wire. 10 gauge, because if you did the equation for the amperage used for it is for 220 volts is like 7,800 watts or better. So it basically equates out to 30 amps for your circuit. Another thing, the most important thing that you're going to need is something like this. Now this is, you probably don't need the one this big. So this is what's called a PDU, power distribution unit. It is basically just a overbuilt surge protector. This runs on 220 volts. This is basically what they use in server rooms. But the key feature about it is got these, was it C C14s, I believe. So basically on like the back of your power supply on pretty much any of them, whether you use an ASIC, a regular ATX power supply, or a printer or a computer, if you don't not familiar with any of that, as long as you've got a computer or something like that, chances are it's got a plug very similar to this on the back of it. Excuse me, going to be a C13, C14. I believe this is C14 because this is the male version of it. So basically, you're going to have a special plug that can go straight from your power supply, and it hooks right in here. This setup will actually come with a locking device that actually holds it in place. This one is actually made by Triplite. This is a 32 amp surge protector, or PDU, and it's broken down into two legs. So this half does 16 amps, this half does 16 amps. And the cool thing about it, it's actually got indicators for how much amps are actually on each circuit that you're using. So at a quick glance, you can know whether if you're overloading that circuit or getting ready to. And yes, I did say 32 amps. So yes, it's going to be rated for more than what the breaker is for, but you're still going to have the breaker. So your breaker is still going to be there to provide that protection. So a quick note on this PDU. So from Triplite, because this one's rated at like 7,400 watts, so a lot. It's got 48 outlets. 2 is the C19s. No, excuse me, 8 C19s, and then 40 of the C14s, C13s. One of them, I'll put it here somewhere, probably right there, maybe, right there. Anyways, so quick note, it will come with this fancy looking connector. I can give you the nomenclature of what's on this thing. It's like a mile long. I honestly don't know what it's used for other than server rooms. I think somebody told me that it could be a explosion-proof connector. I'm not really sure. Maybe somebody can sound off in the comments down below. Anyways, it's not that hard to change it from this connector to this connector. It quite literally disassembles, and there's screws on it where you can actually pull it apart and screw this style on there. It's really not that hard. If you want me to, I can make a video about how to go from this to this, or changing your plugs anyways. And of course, a little outlet cover plate. So, I guess with that said, along with everything else, I will be doing videos on the rest of my mining rig from start to finish, and anything else in between that you would like to see. So, I'm currently running Hive OS, running the Hive on pool, and using Phoenix Miner. If all that sounds like gibberish to you, don't worry, I will be doing videos in the future on how to do this. If not, I'm pretty sure you could probably find videos on the internet as well for this. But one of the things I cannot find on the internet very much well, which I did a lot of extensive research on, is a proper way to power these rigs. I've heard people talk about it a little bit, but I just want to kind of do a in-depth video on what you need to actually power these things. And I'm not going to say it's the right way. I'm just going to say it's information for you to have, and maybe you can do your own research to go from that. I have already spoken to electricians about this. I've made sure that I don't need any permits or anything like that to do what I'm getting ready to do. So, and I've done extensive research. So please, if you're going to do this yourself, be safe and do your research. With that said, I guess let's get into it. All right, so on this panel cover, it just had regular Phillips head screws. So on this panel, if you're not familiar with it, it actually has a square style bit. You can probably get it at any Lowe's or Home Depot or stuff like that. Take this panel off. Same thing with the breakers themselves, like this one. It's either going to take a flathead screwdriver or one of these. Yeah. Another quick fact before I tear this panel open. Do your research on your panels, because I don't remember what brand this is. I'll have to put it on the screen down below. But anyways, this panel only takes its own style breakers. Now this panel they installed for me is a Siemens. So Siemens, it can take all the kind of breakers you want to put in there. Anyways, I did get a official Siemens breaker. I'm gonna put in there. I'm not sure what it is that's different on there. I'm pretty sure some electrician can comment down below the reason why. Pretty sure it's all about money. But anyways, so make sure you do your research if you're actually gonna do this. What breaker did you actually need for it? So now it's gonna take the panel off. All right, so now we have the panel off. It's all clean and pristine, and no other circuit breakers in there. I get to touch it for the first time. So now back to safety. Before you do any work on electrical, make sure you have some kind of device to tell you that there's no power going to it. Now, some of these will have actually a main breaker here up top, depending on where you live and the codes associated with it. Mine is actually outside on the side of the house. Now, there was an 80 amp sub breaker just for this, and I've already turned it off, but for safety, make sure that you double check. All right, so I've got it connected to common or return, or neutral, as it would be called, depending on who you ask. We use our multimeter. I'm going to touch one side of the bar. It's reading in millivolts, so it's safe. It's safe. Touch the other bar. It's reading in millivolts. Check the ground. So the voltage that we're probably seeing is probably due to the rain or just the static buildup in the air. Because even as it sits, and it could be just my meter itself. It might not even touch anything. It's reading about 70 millivolts. Yeah, about 80, about 200 millivolts, 280 millivolts. All right, now some setups will not have this. Again, electricians can correct me if I'm wrong. Some setups will actually have this bar on the side. This one is actually made out of aluminum. Sometimes it'll be copper. And this is basically for your ground. So on my setup, the way I was told, is it actually goes to an actual copper brass rod outside that actually is grounded in the ground. It goes down X amount of feet. I don't remember what the regulations were for it. Basically, if a short was to happen, it would basically go to the quickest route to ground and less likely to damage or hurt somebody, or at least allow the breaker to trip. So with this setup, all you pretty much do is that you're going to basically start at one side, you're going to hook it in and push it down. That's all I'm going to do. Hook it in, push it down, and it's in. And there's two terminals right here that I'll screw into. So I'm going to basically just kind of pour the measure out and move down from here. That's where I'm going to put the outlet. Now the good thing about something like this is that they've actually already done the hard work for me. So when they install a box like this, at least here, they actually mount it to the studs. So on this side there's a stud, and on this side you can see through the side that there's the stud, and that's where it's screwed to. Basically all you got to do is move down, mount your box right there. This one's actually got screws already mounted in it. All you basically got to do is mark the hole, cut it out, and you can cut it out with all different kinds of tools. I'm just going to basically use a box cutter. I've had plenty of success with it in the past. Pretty sure somebody can correct me of a better way to do it. Pretty sure they've got reciprocating saws or some kind of saw device that you can make that job a lot easier. But if you just want to start out simple, you can do box cutter. Works fine. Thank you. It's fine. Why am I saying thank you? Works fine. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna eyeball it. I'm gonna tell you what, I'm just gonna eyeball that some bit. Rub it down. That's what I'm gonna do. And I'm gonna mark it like so. Tell you what. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move that camera right there. All right, now I got my basic measurement cut out. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut that hole out like that. Might want to start with a sharp blade though. All right, so I still have insulation in here, which is good because that's on the side of the house. So it's insulating heat, cold, whatever, from this side, that side. It's in there. Now what I gotta do is there's panels in here, little punch things. I'm gonna punch them out. All right. So before I finished this, I realized because of the wires passed through on this box right here, that I should probably have a pass through first. Now, so I have these little grommets that allows the wires to pass through without scraping up against the cage and possibly shorting out. However, when I punched out this one, it's not the right size because this one just falls through. So I had to punch out another one. These punch outs are pretty easy. You can pretty much just use a screwdriver and pop them up, or if you're able to get them from the backside, just pop them up and just wiggle them back and forth like a soda top can and pull them out. So now I'm gonna feed wire down through here with my Romax. Gonna pull it out through here, run it into my box, screw my box in, and see if I don't burn myself. All right, so now I'm gonna take my wire, or as I guess electricians would call it, Romax. Stick it down through the wire grommet I just put in there. Pull it out a little bit. Just pull it out a little bit. Stick my wire into my electrical outlet box. Now, because it's house wire, it's single strand wire, it means it's very stiff. Insert the outlet box in. I'm going to screw it right in. Have it pretty flush, so when the plate comes on, it'll be nice and covered up, hopefully. Hopefully I won't screw that part up. Now, this is going to be a 10 by 3, which means it's 10 gauge wire. and there's 3 of them. So you're going to have 2 hots and 1 ground. Now, some appliances, they're going to have, more. Some of them are going to have an additional wire for neutral as well. This setup does not require that. On this outlet on the back, it has 3 posts. There's an X and a Y, and it has your ground. Now, if you're using this for 220, it doesn't matter which goes where, as long as 2 hot wires go here and here, and here's your ground. Now, if you're using 120, then one of them is going to be for your hot, and the other one's going to be for your common. I don't remember which, but that's irrelevant for this project. Alright, so once you got the main sheathing stripped, spread them apart a little bit, and then you can strip off the insulation on the 2 hot wires. Probably just only about 1/2 inch is probably all you really need. Get your outlets pulled out and just kind of loosen up the terminals. And then there's little flaps in there, and you just shove the wire in there and tight rip. Alright, once you've got it installed on your outlet, just try the best you can to fold it up or try to pull it through. Try to get it all shoved in there so you can put your screws in place. Alright, once you got it mounted flush, just kind of figure out how much of the wire you need to cut. I'm just going to basically go up to where the ground terminal is, and that's pretty much where I'm going to cut, so I can bring everything else down to where I need it. Alright, so I've got my ground wire hooked up to a bus bar right there. And then here's going to be my 2 hot wires right there, right there. I'm going to go ahead and put this back on. Having it on position until I'm ready. Kind of measure it out. That's pretty much where I want it. Alright, there you pretty much have it. 30 amp breaker. Going to 2 split phases. 2 hot wires. Ground. It's grounded through the case and through the side bus bar right here down to my outlet right here. So now the next thing is turn on the power, make sure she works. Alright, so I just got done turning the breaker back on. So just to make sure that we're hot and live. $123 volts. 123 volts. Measure between the 2 bars. 248. So I confirm that this switch I have 248 volts. Turn the breaker on. No fire. Now to take our PDU. Once I plug this in, the amp meter should light up and hopefully not catch me on fire. Here we go. We're all light up. Not on a big ball of fire. I think we're good. All right, now that I've tested it, I'm gonna put everything back together, clean it up, and we'll wrap up this video. All right, so there we are. Got the panels put back on. Even got the little punch outs punched out. They punch out from behind. Give a little twisty tab like a soda can up top. Pops them right off. And there we go. All I have to do is label it. And it looks like I'm ready to go. All right, so hopefully that helps some of you who are trying to look for a better way to power your mining assembly, especially your ASICs. And trust me, this is going to be a lot better and a lot safer option, because for a 30 amp outlet at 220 volts is something like between 7,400 to 7,800 watts out of one outlet. And just think about how many power supplies you can power with that, especially with a PDU like this. Now, chances are you going to be able to utilize all 48 outlets like this? Probably not, but you can be able to spread it out. So if you are using server power supplies, because they're dirt cheap, like you can find them pretty much for 20 to 40 bucks on eBay, and then get you a breakout board and some cables. If you're only utilizing between maybe like 30 to 70% of that power supply, chances are the fan's not going to turn on. It won't be nearly as hot. You'll be able to run cooler, because I've noticed that on mine. Anyways, I'm rambling on in this video. Just need to cut it. So again, hopefully this has been helpful. Again, I am not an electrician. I am not an expert. I am just a hobbyist who's trying to pass along my knowledge onto you all. Like I said, I'm pretty sure some electricians can be cussing me out in the comments down below. Bring it on. Please teach me something new. If you ain't screwing something up, you ain't learning. And that's also very true when it comes to hobbies, and that's all this channel is all about. So hopefully you liked it. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I shall see you in the next one. Thank you. All right. Well, here's pretty much the finished product. It's been a couple weeks since I started the work on the fuse panel. As you can see, I'll just move this out of the way. It's all nicely plugged up. I've also have an exhaust fan. Pulls 600 CFM. It's doing a pretty decent job for here in Florida. I've mounted my PDU. So this PDU is actually larger than what I need. So there's outlets on here that are not being used, but let's see if we can get it on camera. So there are two amp meters on here for the two different legs, and on this top portion I'm pretty much at the limit. So a lot of these outlets aren't even getting used, so I definitely didn't need one this big. I still got a little bit more room on the bottom half. I'm only running 25 cards, and I've got enough room down here at the bottom to run a total of 32 total before I have to start another rack and start another plug, obviously. So since I first started this video, I've cleaned up the rack a little bit. I've done some cable management. I am going to do a tutorial from start to finish on how to make a miner like this. I am using server power supplies. Top row I'm running 1200 watt HP server power supplies. Everything else is 1400 watt Dell power supplies. They're dirt cheap. get them for like 25 bucks off of eBay. The breakout boards are from Parallel Miner because they have the sync cable. So one button I can turn off the entire system. Let's see. Some of the cables are from Parallel Miner, some of them I found off of eBay. The biggest thing, if you've done any research on miners, is sometimes the cable size, what's red on the outside, is not what's actually the copper diameter is on the inside. So if it says that it's an 18 gauge wire, I highly recommend when you get it set, cut it open and see the size of the wire. I've had a couple of splice kick packs or splitters, 6 to 8 pin splitters, and I've opened them up, and they were definitely not 18 gauge. They were probably like 20 or 24 gauge wire. They're really thin, and you can even grab the wires, and they were getting warm. So I can grab these wires without an issue, and they're still pretty cool. So I'm going to give you a close-up of everything else that I have. So what I've done from Parallel Miner, that they have a remote power management board right here. You can actually go through the Ethernet to actually control it remotely. I did not have any luck controlling it that way. However, there is a workaround. So it uses a 5 volt power for the actual board itself. And when that loses power, it actually will shut down the entire chain link system and all the power supplies. So if you're not any good at setting up a port forwarding like me, or you just want something a little bit easier, I tried doing that port forwarding. Like I said, I'm not an expert at all this stuff. I'm just a hobbyist trying to pass on my information. Hopefully it helps y'all. So what I did instead, I have a remote. It's poorly called a smart outlet. You can buy them pretty much anywhere, Lowe's, Home Depot. They're just a little outlet, basically kind of like your smart light bulbs or anything like that. And you can actually go to an app and you can control it with your phone, so you can power on and off, or dimmer, or whatever. This one actually came with my home alarm system, and I have it hooked up to the 5 volt USB power supply. So from my phone, I can turn off this outlet, and what that'll do is that'll actually shut down the entire rig. So for some reason, if it's not working right, or it's not connected to the system, or if maybe one of the cards for some reason has an error and it goes offline, I can restart it. For operating system, I don't remember if I set it already. I am using Hive OS, the complete OS, so it's all Linux. It's not like it's based off of a Windows user or nothing like that. I have a dedicated Ethernet going to a Ethernet switch. I have a monitor to monitor some of the systems. However, I'm not happy with it because I have to keep changing it from motherboard to motherboard. So in this setup, I'm actually using 3 motherboards for all the cards. You could probably obviously set this up a lot different. Probably not necessarily need something like this. But what I would like to do is, so I installed a 7-inch monitor into my wife's computer. I'd love to get a couple more of those and put them on the rack right here so I can monitor each one of the systems. The downside is trying to justify paying another 80 bucks per monitor just to do that. It's hard trying to justify that right now. I know there's probably an argument. Well, you got tens of thousands of dollars worth of graphics cards. You don't want to spend the money on monitor? Yeah, that's the battle. So. With this setup, I'm only getting about 1.5 gigahash. It's not a whole lot, but it's good income. Even with the new EIP 1559, it's still doing really well. Um, let's just see what the future brings. I'm pretty sure that we'll still have plenty of stuff to mine in the future. If there's money to be made out there somewhere, especially with there's millions of people that actually have miners set up, Ethereum is not the end all be all. I'm convinced of that. As long as there's money out there to be made, we're gonna do it. So, alright, well, I think that's pretty much about it. Hopefully this has been helpful. If you liked the video, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If there's any other information you'd like to provide, from my research, this is pretty much the safest way to set it to actually power your miner. If somebody out there has got a better option or better suggestion, please put it down in the comments below. I'd love to learn. I'd love to share. That's what this channel is all about, sharing each other's hobbies. And I shall see you in the next one.